everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks so much for having me, and I'm looking forward to talking to you about this topic. So, audience has become quite a recurring topic over the past few years, and the reason I believe it is because audience opens a window to the truth. So William Bernbach once said, "The most powerful element in advertising is the truth." It is insight into human nature that is the key to the communicator's skill. For whereas the writer is concerned with what he puts into his writings, the communicator is concerned with what the reader gets out of it. He therefore becomes a student of how people read or listen. Now, before we get into it, let's think about and consider products that are nearly universal. Coffee, personal hygiene, family care. These products could be commodities, but in many cases, they are not. The reason you choose one over the other is your truth, likely different from the truth that is important to your best friends, your significant other, your parents, sibling, or neighbor. If you think about the why you select these products, it could be that there are certain flavors or scents that you prefer. Maybe a scent that reminds you of baking with your mother, or maybe one that reminds you of a spa day. It could be cost or conversely premiumization that is important to you. It could be how the product is derived. Perhaps you're interested in only organic ingredients. Or do you prioritize the way it makes you feel? Perhaps your skin or the convenience of it arriving to you. And this is where audience comes in. Advertising can expose the truth in its most powerful form by ultimately molding a creative idea to be relevant to an audience. So before we continue forward, what is an audience? Simply, audience is a group of human beings that share a common trait. So if I think about myself, I'm a woman. I'm in the age group of 25 to 34. I'm currently in the progress of a move from Switzerland to Chicago, which I don't recommend. It's not super fun. I love to travel. I keep looking for ways to improve my overall health, whether it be mind, body, or skin. And I use coconut oil for basically everything in my coffee, as lotion, to cook with. And these are just some of the components that make me me. That means I could be in audiences such as a woman 25 to 34, women that love to travel, people that are just obsessed with coconut oil. But how do these attributes impact the products that could be a fit for me? And moreover, my larger need state? What truths would ultimately speak to me? Now, if we take a look at this slide here, these men share many demographics. They're both male, they're both age 72, they're both born in the UK, and they both have multiple children. But would the same truth ultimately speak to them? Let's look at it from another angle, perhaps a more typical angle of audiences at this juncture. Both of these women are interested in improving their overall skin health, but would the same truth speak to them? Simply buying media while targeting an audience will rarely achieve the larger purpose. Unlocking the power of a truth requires relevance of the message for the audience. So how do we pair media with creative to achieve audience first advertising? What technology do we ultimately use? Now, before we get into the technology, I'm a big believer in understanding the processes, because technology is not useful unless you understand the current processes you're working with and what needs to change. So you need to understand the overarching campaign processes and the specifics of the following entities. Number one, the brands. Number two, the media agency for both the planning and buying team. Number three, the creative agency. And number four, the production agency. Once you understand the processes, You need to enable the convergence of these so that you can ultimately deliver a creative that is molded to each desired audience. Now, to bring the processes together, you can start with a process similar to traditional marketing, where you map the consumer. Both advertisers and agencies will have a significant amount of insight from research partners on who their consumer is. In parallel to mapping the consumer, sometimes called the target consumer, you can define and split your audiences into how they would receive truths. You will need to take a decision ultimately on how frequently you refresh these audiences based on your business and your product. For example, if you're a coffee brand, your target consumer may be split into on the go, family first. These people are making a carafe of coffee, American style, every morning for the whole family, or the solo savorer. Now, this is one of the first areas that you can leverage technology. So in defining your audience to lead to a greater understanding of who it should be, media platforms such as Facebook or DSPs frequently have insights about who engaged with your media. These can be leveraged to inform your audience plan. For a more specific example, by applying the Trade Desk pixel on your website, data is ultimately being shared with the Trade Desk and ported in. Their planner, their proprietary planner, can then illustrate insights and interest about your consumers. It can also uncover new potential consumers, category enthusiasts, people that are in market, etc. Other DSPs, such as Amobi, formerly known as Turn, can showcase insights related to your brand or category keywords, illustrating what are your consumers searching for, what articles are they reading, and when are they most active. Within their platform, you can literally search for a keyword such as pet travel or instant coffee. And these various terms they'll then illustrate what consumers are explicitly looking for within those categories, as well as those specific searches, either branded or non-branded, and how they are engaging with media consumption, etc. If you look towards e-commerce platforms such as Amazon or regional ones in Europe, such as Getir in Turkey, these have insights as well that they can share with you about who is actually purchasing your brands. What are their attributes? As well as if they're purchasing your brands, they will have insights about what else they are searching, what else they are buying, and how they interact with their purchases. Do they purchase every week? Do they purchase once a month? Do they purchase randomly, etc.? And of course, standard research technologies can as well provide insights into the mind of the consumer, enabling both the planning and selection of audience. Your defined audience can ultimately be built as a standalone framework or can be used as a component within a campaign. However, for the sake of this journey and this talk, let's say the audience has been defined prior to the campaign and you are getting ready to brief for a new campaign. To enable audience-first communications, it is absolutely critical to start with an integrated brief and briefing towards each of your external partners. They need to receive the same message from your teams if you're a brand. So the briefing should go towards your creative agency, your media agency, your shopper agency, your influencer agency, any other external partners that you work with. And the briefing should include business insights, the overarching communication task, campaign objectives, who the target consumer is, and going into audience first advertising, who the selected audiences that you have for your product or brand, as well as any historic campaign or consumer insights that can be used to infuse a smarter creative idea or media plan. Now, to infuse your campaign briefing with insights, you can leverage various technologies. For example, ad verification platforms have creative engagement metrics. This is a little used component of their platforms that I believe has a lot of potential. And these creative engagement metrics can be infused as insights within the brief about what worked and what didn't work. Moat, for example, can show hotspots of the creative. Where was the consumer's eyes actually on the screen on your creative? Whereas integral ad science can show on Facebook which creatives received the most engagement. So one takeaway can be to talk to your agency or talk to your ad verification platforms about how these creative insights can infuse your briefing and your planning. There are Google tools that can illustrate insights about your category through search behaviors, or conversely, you can leverage Google surveys to see what is most important to your consumer. You can ask a research question, and then the survey metrics and the survey answers will ultimately split the learnings by demographics such as age and gender. So you'll see for different ages, for different genders, for different household incomes, are the answers different? All media platforms, as well as your ad server, will have additional learnings about which media performed best. Your learnings will be most granular if you implement a standard naming convention taxonomy that helps inform some of the components of what you want to know about your performance. But there are many reports that you can leverage, automated reports that you can schedule, where you can input learnings towards inventory, audience, creative, or partners to infuse programmatic data into the briefing. One question you can ask your agency as a takeaway is, what data can we leverage to better inform our briefing to you? If you are an agency or a partner, you can ask your advertiser partners to discuss how technology can be better used to inform the brief. So as the next step, after the briefing, the media planning team will compile a response to the brief with the proposed media strategy, ideally built through an audience-first lens, taking from your briefing. The creative agency will, in parallel, ideate a creative idea to achieve the overarching communication task. And your agencies can infuse their responses with technology in various ways. So here's 3 examples. Number 1, past performance of audiences can be pulled from media platforms or the ad server. Now, again, this will be most granular and most interesting if you've implemented a consistent naming convention taxonomy. So for example, as a component in it, you could have, where is the audience derived from? Or what is the audience provider entity? So for example, is the audience that you're using derived from a DSP cohort? Is it derived from a publisher cohort? Is it derived from an ad verification platform or your identity platform such as Epsilon? Was it onboarded through a live ramp or through a similar technology? Now, you can take a look at the performance of these audiences and see, are there any trends? You can also look at types of audience. Was it behavioral, contextual, demographic, or a combination thereof? You can look at specific audiences' performance. Maybe there's ones in certain platforms that perform better than others. You could look at the types of data being incorporated. If you build it correctly, there's a lot of learnings that you can take into your future campaigns and your future media strategies. Now, many of the media planners, specifically in the platforms such as advanced DSPs, nearly all of them, DV360, The Trade Desk, Amobi, Verizon, Xandr, these all can forecast reach. So if you are inputting your audiences, your tactics, they can tell you how many individuals you can reach with your budget and what the potential scale is. If you're partnering with publishers or e-retailers, many of these can do the same thing. This forecast of reach can help to infuse the actual media plan. Separately, the creative agency in their planning and their ideation can use randomized control testing technologies such as Swayable to test creative concepts to determine which will ultimately have the best result for your campaign. 3 questions that you can ask both your creative and media agency are, is number one, what technologies do they use to infuse their response to brief? Each agency often has their own proprietary technology as well that is frequently used here. How does the creative agency receive insight into how their creative is performing? Is there a regular cadence that they have with the media agency? This is often quite a miss, and if there's not that virtuous feedback loop, you can have all these incredible processes, all this incredible technology, but without the feedback loop, you're going to be missing a major component to make your media and creative work smarter. You can also ask the creative agency, do they have access to the actual platforms where they can regularly see insights into the creative? If you're an advertiser and you own your own contracts with technology providers, there are various views and reporting access that you can give the creative agency without showcasing components that the media agency might not want to share with the creative agency if it's a competing agency. Now, this is the critical junction point where technology can get very special. You have your high-level audience first media plan, and you have your high-level creative idea. That is the point the creative idea can ultimately be molded to suit each of your audiences. What is referred to as DCO technology, dynamic creative optimization, is the perfect way to bring creative and media together. There are many technologies out there and many excellent ones that should be selected based on your business needs. Now, DCO technology can achieve four things. The first one is what it's most known for, an acting audience-first creative across paid digital media platforms and formats. But one thing to keep in mind, and a common misconception, is that it goes beyond display and it goes beyond DSP activation. If ran with optimal processes across both planning and production, you can ultimately activate a unified creative umbrella concept, adjusting the message of truth for each audience with the right platform specific creative. The second thing it can do is it serves as a dynamic canvas template where you can automate some components of the creative production to adjust a master creative for various sizes, lengths, and platforms, serving in many ways as a CMP. The third thing it can do is automated omni-channel delivery and optimization. The DCO platforms ultimately can use multivariate testing, optimizing creatives toward the best performing components and the holistic experience. So rather than just testing, does copy A perform better than copy B? Or does protagonist A perform better than protagonist B? You can test many things at once. 3 talent, 5 titles, 3 color backgrounds. You can go quite far in this as long as you have the budget to enable statistical significance. And the fourth thing it does is it ultimately unifies creative and media workflows with agility. So let's go a bit further into the actuality of some of this. DCO technology, what it does is it actually ingests data signals from media platforms such as DV360 or identity platforms. It can ingest CRM or other brand data inclusive of stock levels, store locations. It can ingest data such as user location, pollen levels, weather. It can ingest standard platform audiences such as coffee lovers in DV360. And it can also ingest trending events or the context of the consumer. In ingesting these data signals, it ultimately leverages them to adjust the creative via a decision tree. Now, there was one campaign that I think is the perfect example of this. In the US, there's an issue with mobile data plan costs. It can be quite expensive to process data on your cell phone, and this is a concern for many people. One telecommunications company took this truth and then made it relevant for the individual based on the audience they were in. So if the consumer was watching a beauty video, then the commercial had a beauty theme. If they were watching a sports video, then the commercial had a sports theme. Then on top of this behavioral element of what they were watching, they additionally adjusted the specific message based on the length of the YouTube video the consumer was watching, stating if they were watching this video on a competitor's US data plan, this video just cost them, for example, $1.23. They took a truth for the market and molded it to be more relevant based on the consumer's interests. This is a great use of DCO. It doesn't just add a animation on top of a video. It doesn't just change the product out, which are absolutely two viable uses of DCO, but it really brings audience first advertising to life in a fun way. Now, the second component of DCO, the dynamic canvas, is sort of similar to the wireframe of a website. It provides a template that enables the assets to assemble together with adjustments of different components, such as talent, background, audio, for video, order of frames, product. This can work for both video and display across both DSPs, social, and even advanced TV. Some DSP platforms can activate true advanced TV on the linear TV in your living room. Some can do digital out of home, audio, email, website. If you conduct an RFP on a DCO technology, it's important to comprehensively ask which platforms, channels, and formats the DCO technology can produce content for and which it can activate on. Ask them what their roadmap is. There's many different platforms out there and many emerging platforms that are continually launched each year. It's a very trendy technology. So ask them that simple question to make sure that you can really activate that omni-channel decisioning across all of your formats and all of your channels as desired. Now, some of the DCO technology, not necessarily all of them, will pair together workflows, pulling creative agencies, media agencies, brand and advertiser media teams together, transitioning quite inefficient and disconnected email handoffs towards a unified workflow hub. So just as Jira in many ways is a ticketing system, but as well a unified platform for engineering projects, some of the DCO technology pairs together the workflow in a newer form that creates operational efficiencies and removes a lot of potential for mistakes. Now, as we're all aware, the programmatic industry is going through a massive shift away from cookies. But moreover, and more importantly, the way we all interact with the world around us is going through a massive shift. There's been a rapid rise in e-commerce across the world and across countries. And thus there's been a rapid rise in retail media. There's also been a shift in how we interact with entertainment and a resulting rise in advanced TV consumption. But we need to take a step back because a consumer is still a person, and a person is comprised of many aspects, many truths. So while the methodology of an audience and while the methodology of how an audience gets built may be shifting significantly, while there may also be a shift from behavioral audiences to contextual audiences, ultimately a person is still a person. We each have many parts to us, and we relate to the world through the lens of our truths. So if I leave you with one final thing, think about the consumer journey for your campaigns, for your partnerships. Why are consumers interested in the product, the brand, or the category you are working on? What will speak to them? Build your media strategy around the consumer journey, thinking how to ensure a consumer is only counted in one audience, leveraging the right suppression in the right places. Ultimately, know and understand your consumer, but infuse technology into your media and creative so that a relevant story resounds. because a person is a person, no matter the audience methodology they are built on. Do we have any